Welcome to Tom's Messiaen vlog, episode 11. I really enjoy the spontaneity that vlogging allows, and I'd written a script of sorts, a plan anyway, for vlog number 11, and then the other day I was playing movement 8 of the Livre de Saint-Sacrement, and a nightingale sings, and as it was singing, as I was playing it, I realised that there was a resonance with a previous piece of Messiaen that I played, and I wanted to share that with you because I thought it was rather nice and quite striking little tidbit of information. Whether or not it's of any particular significance is another matter, but I thought it'd be interesting. So I wanted to share that with you. So here I am, I'm vlogging about movement 8 instead of whatever else it was I was going to talk about today. Before I get onto the nightingale, before I get onto this thing I noticed, let's put movement 8 in context. Because the thing is, I may have not vlogged about this piece, which is stupid because it's actually really important, and I'll come on to why in a moment. But the reason why I might have omitted to talk about it much is because it's quite understated, it's humble, it's not a piece that anybody's going to lift out of the cycle and play in a recital programme on its own for a start. So it's not one of the famous movements, it's not big, loud, fast, it's not technically challenging, so I spend less time with it than I might otherwise do compared with some of the other movements. And movement 7, that savagely exultant resurrection and the light of life movement, which I've described in a previous episode, that finishes on full organ, and then we have this. So having had full organ at the end of the previous movement, we then have this little string stopper, a greater contrast one could not imagine. And the other thing is the box is shut on it gradually as those two bars progress, which I can't do on this organ, of course. So it starts really quietly and then gets quieter, and those chords close up like a fan, which is how Messiaen described them. And so this piece just immediately shrinks away almost into obscurity. It's very humble, it's very understated, it's quite delicate, it's quite tender and intimate. All of which is to say, I think it's a piece that slips under the radar somewhat, and yet it's of critical importance. Why? Well, two reasons. Firstly, this is a cycle of pieces about communion, about the Eucharist. This I have already mentioned. And here we are, movement 8, pretty much slap bang in the middle, and this piece is the institution of the Eucharist. It's the Last Supper, it's Maundy Thursday, it's the first ever communion. So it's pivotal, therefore, it's of such importance to the theme of the whole cycle. And the passage of scripture that Messiaen attaches to it is from Matthew 26, "This is my body, this is my blood." The miraculous words of Jesus as Messiaen described them. And indeed, Messiaen represents Jesus' words in a couple of places in this piece. I'm not going to play that to you just simply because I don't have the right stops here to really bring that off. But anyway, Messiaen represents Jesus' words, as I've said. Now, that's one reason why it's important. It's thematically important to the cycle as a whole, but it's important to the Livre de Saint-Sacrement for another reason, and that is that the whole blinking cycle started with this piece, and that's something I didn't know till relatively recently, actually, I've got to be honest. So, today's book recommendation, Messiaen's Final Works, Christopher Dingle, published by Ashgate. I hope I've not mentioned it before. I've mentioned a few books now. I should probably keep a log of which ones I've talked about. Anyway, as you'll see from all the post-it notes, this is a piece a book I have eaten voraciously. It's marvellous, highly recommended. And the reason why I'm getting it out on this particular occasion is because Dingle quotes an interview with Messiaen where he talks about where the Livre de Saint-Sacrement started. He talks about this piece. So here we go. This is Messiaen. "My post as church organist obliges me to improvise. My wife records me and I listen to these improvisations with a very critical ear. One Maundy Thursday evening, when the church commemorates the institution by Christ of the Eucharist, I had 3 minutes to fill with music, and that was when I had a sudden inspiration. I played a piece which at first looks like nothing at all, a very simple Bacchic rhythm, short, long, long, a commonplace first inversion chord, but I suddenly realised on hearing it again that this music was not like any other. I believe that I was inspired by the moment, touched by this service, which was very beautiful. I rewrote this piece, I called it The Institution of the Eucharist, and I began to write the Livre de Saint-Sacrement." So it started, this whole cycle, as an improvisation, Maundy Thursday, 1981, as it happens. So there we go. It's a significant piece for those two reasons. Incidentally, he mentioned that Bacchic rhythm, the simple rhythm, long, short, short Greek rhythm on a first inversion chord. So that happens immediately after the string chords we've heard. And it then settles down into a root position chord. And that A flat chord, be it in first inversion or root position, underpins, I mean, I haven't counted the number of bars, but the bulk of the piece anyway, over the top of which Jesus' miraculous words are represented. And then immediately after that, we hear the nightingale. So there's a significance there as well, by the way. I've talked before about how Messiaen uses birds to represent freedom, grace, and so on and so forth. So we have the first ever communion immediately followed by a bird singing through the upper room window, if you like. And I've told you before, movement 15, Le Joie de la Grâce, movement which happens in the context of this cycle at the very moment of communion. That's all birds, no commentary from the composer whatsoever. It's just birds, birds, birds. Totally amazing, and at some point I will tell you all about it, but I think I need to do it in a building and on an organ where I can realise all the registrations, so we'll have to wait for that for a little while. Anyway, be that as it may, we have a nightingale in movement 8. And the thing I noticed, the thing I wanted to tell you about, and like I say, I've never noticed anybody having made comment on this particular thing that I noticed, which means one of two things. Either it is totally insignificant as a factoid, or I'm the first person to notice, and here we are having a pioneering vlog. Either way, it doesn't really matter. The nightingale sings in the institution of the Eucharist just after Christ has broken the bread. And then if we cut back to the Messe de la Pentecôte, a Mass setting, a Eucharist, from the late 1940s, the movement there, at the moment of communion, the fourth movement, also has a nightingale in it. And it's that I noticed. I was playing the Livre de Saint-Sacrement movement, and I got to the nightingale bit, and I thought, hang on a minute, this actually sounds pretty familiar. It's from Messe de la Pentecôte. The same bird sings. It sounds slightly different. Anyway, just for fun, why don't I give you the two different versions of the nightingale. It starts on the same note. It sort of sings in the same key, I suppose. So here's Messe de la Pentecôte. I'm not going to do all the registrations because I can't, so I'm just going to play it on an 8-foot flute, but here we are. In Livre de Saint-Sacrement, movement 8, after Jesus breaks the bread, after he utters his words, the nightingale sings through the window of the upper room. Now, did the nightingale have a particular significance for Messiaen? So far I haven't discovered that it did. Maybe it's just a bird song that he had committed to memory. It was something that he could sort of call upon in an improvisation very easily. Let's not forget that Messe de la Pentecôte, although many decades earlier, also started amidst Messiaen's improvisations on a Sunday at La Trinité, just as this movement of Livre de Saint-Sacrement did. So anyway, there's the nightingale. I just wanted to share that little thing, and I'll see you again for episode 12.